We've all asked just to leave. I mean, what part of leave don't they get?
It's always hope. It's not done. It's not done until it's done.
Brexit is an absolute disaster, and we do everything we can to stop it.
Has the UK become a bit of a laughingstock in the eyes of the world?
Well, the world's used to seeing Britain with a pretty stable, strong political system, and we were probably the most stable and strongest political system in Europe in many ways. So it is, well, it's distressing to see us in such a state of dysfunction.
Pomp, ceremony, and the most famous royal family in the world. It's clear the United Kingdom has the kingdom part nailed down, but at the moment, it's not so united.
Contemptuous of this Parliament is in chaos. The noes have it. The noes have it.
Less about Brexit.
And it's thanks to the chaos that is Brexit.
The UK has voted to leave the European Union.
3 years since the referendum where a majority voted for the UK to leave the European Union, Prime Minister Theresa May has boot-scooted her way from one disaster to the next. There's been no deal, no crash out, and no end to the drama in sight.
I'm angry, to be honest with you, and millions of British people are very angry indeed.
Nigel Farage is happy to tell you what he thinks. They call him Mr Brexit because for 20 years as the face of the UK Independence Party, he was a fringe dweller campaigning for the UK to crash out of the EU. In 2016, he got the result he wanted.
In this ongoing psychodrama, that is...
But now he's blaming everyone else for not making it happen.
I thought, this is our Independence Day. We're now nearly 3 years on and there's zero progress. Why? Because our Parliament is made up 75% of people who voted Remain, and nearly all of them refuse to accept the result.
Do you have any appreciation for what Theresa May is going through? I mean, she's stuck at it for 3 years. She's trying to make ground.
We have the worst Prime Minister in my lifetime, but also the most duplicitous one as well. We have a British Prime Minister, you know, who rather like Oliver in the Dickens novels is going up and saying, please, sir, can I have some more?
The weight of the UK on her shoulders. Theresa May is in one hell of a pickle. She's stuck trying to negotiate the seemingly impossible and being humiliated along the way. And that's because she wants to have it all. A deal which frees Britain from the clutches of Europe, while at the same time lets them keep all the benefits of membership of the EU.
I will not let them down.
Things like easy trade agreements and control over borders. But is it fair to blame Theresa May? I mean, this is one very big, complicated deal for the UK to leave the EU. It's not easy.
Well, nothing in life is easy. No change is easy. Brexit was a fork in the road. And she decided she'd try and keep a foot on both sides of the road.
So you'd be happier with no deal?
Would I be happier with independence? Because that's what it is. We'd be a self-governing country. We'd be like Australia. We'd be like a normal country. That's what I want.
Is Brexit going to happen?
So I still think it's possible it will go back to the people, and I think there's a reasonable likelihood if we do go back to the people that they'll vote to stay, because actually the rational case for Britain staying in Europe is overwhelming today.
Former Prime Minister Tony Blair knows a thing or two about running a country. In 2016, he was one of the 48% of people who voted for the UK to remain in the EU. But he believes the implications of Brexit were never properly explained back then, and says that means the only workable solution is another referendum.
You've got this mess with this magnitude of decision. It's not unreasonable to say to people, do you want to think again?
But another referendum would betray those who voted to leave in the first place, wouldn't it?
I don't see why. I mean, people voted to leave, but they voted before we began the Brexit process, before we understood properly all the options. We can now make an informed decision as to whether we still want to go ahead or not. And I find it a curious argument that there's something undemocratic about going back to the same people. We're not going to some other people. We're going to the British people and saying, OK, in the light of this, and given the choices that there are before us, do you still want to do it?
There will be difficult days ahead.
If anyone can sympathise with the nightmare Theresa May is currently living, it's Tony Blair. He understands the importance of trying to mediate the best way for Brexit, but thinks ultimately she needs to be a tougher taskmaster.
I know how difficult it is to do the job, but what I think she should have done and can do even now is to recognise that you can't heal the divide. You're going to have to resolve it by being the facilitator, by being, if you like, the referee of the game rather than the captain of one of the teams.
Is no deal better than a bad deal?
No deal would be extremely dangerous for the country. There's nobody responsible who thinks that no deal's sensible. And when these Brexiteers say, yeah, let's just do no deal, I mean, they say it knowing perfectly well that Parliament won't allow it.
The difficulty of Brexit is best seen here on the border between Northern Ireland, the UK, and the Republic of Ireland, Europe. So we're leaving the Republic of Ireland?
Yes, yeah, our existing Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. And this is into our Northern Ireland in the UK.
Don Redden runs a bus company that straddles the two, and at the moment, with free trade, he can go anywhere he wants.
We've built this bridge. We call it the bridge over troubled waters, and they're pretty troubled at the minute.
But he's thinking ahead. Because Don's company is already split in two, he's got both a British and Irish phone number, works in sterling and euros, and if Brexit happens, he's built a bridge and private road to access both the UK and European markets. At a great cost to you?
At a huge cost, yeah, at a huge cost.
The great unknown, really.
The great unknown. Everyone asks the question, but there are no answers. The politicians in the UK don't have answers, so how is someone like myself going to have answers? So this is my answer to it, by doing this work.
It's more than just a business problem, though. Don says after 21 years of peace in Northern Ireland, Brexit is stirring up bad blood.
That's a huge fear we have. It's frightening. It is, it's frightening.
So reigniting those tensions?
Reigniting the tensions, yes. That's what no one in their right mind wants to go back to them days. Everyone's anxious to what the future holds for them.
We're in the shadow of Westminster right now.
We are.
What's it like behind those walls?
If the truth be told, I think Parliament's completely constipated because we can't make a decision.
Death threats, breakdowns. The public's anger towards their politicians is palpable. Conservative MP Bob Seely voted to leave. But he and his colleagues are struggling not only to enact the will of the people, but simply to govern.
I get a lot fewer death threats than most people. My last death threat was 3 weeks ago. To be honest, I take it on the chin. Politics isn't easy, and this isn't easy either. So, it's draining. I want to get on with my job and deliver for my folks. So, emotionally, but are we going to I hope we don't collectively have a nervous breakdown.
He'd like to see the UK prioritise its relationships with Commonwealth nations Australia, Canada and New Zealand instead of Europe.
It's easier for somebody from Eastern Europe to come and live and work in the UK than it is from someone from Australia. I think that's wrong, and I think that's daft. We should have as much freedom as movement as we can cope with for our people.
But is that not just leaving one bloc, the European Union, and then joining another bloc with Australia, New Zealand and Canada?
And our natural allies throughout the world have always been the Canadians, the Australians, the New Zealanders and the Americans, because we share a common language, a pretty similar culture. Okay, you Vegemite, we have Marmite. There's a lot that unites us.
Now, if you're not confused enough already, consider this. Nigel Farage, who wants so desperately for the UK to leave Europe, is going to recontest his seat in the European Parliament. He wants to use the position to continue to grandstand about Brexit until Britain finally leaves. Once the Leave voters had won the referendum, why did you quit as leader of UKIP?
Well, because they did 25 years of my life. I'd ruined my life to build a political party. I'd given them everything for 25 years. I reckon that was a reasonable contribution.
But this is the turning point in UK politics that you've identified yourself as a history-making moment in UK politics, and you left.
And I was excluded from the next stage of the process. There wasn't any more I could do.
But couldn't you agitate for change more as a powerful leader of UKIP?
Well, when was I to go on? Was I to give it 50 years or 60 years or 70? Was I to do it until I died? I'd done it.
Why is it important for you to be elected into the European Parliament, given your disdain for the EU?
Because it's the most incredible platform. Ironically, it's been very good for me.
But it's a platform you'd like to see go.
Of course. But all the while it's there, we'll use it. All the while it's there, we'll use it.
It sounds like somewhat of a contradiction to me.
Doesn't it? I mean, of course it does. But life is full of all sorts of strange ironies. I would much rather not have to do this, but I'm going to do it. And we will win again.
With a new deadline of October 31, that's 6 months more of bickering and uncertainty for the United Kingdom. But Tony Blair isn't sure there'll ever be a happy ending.
For 3 years, we haven't really debated it properly because we've been trying to find this perfect Brexit. We've been on a search for the Holy Grail, and if you remember, the Holy Grail has never been found. It's not going to be found. It is a choice between staying in the economic structures, which is pointless, or getting out of them, which is painful. Now, you may decide you want the pain, but that's the choice.
Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.